There we are. There we are. We have volume. Alright, I'm gonna kill this. Restart. It's a live show. I'm sorry. Mistakes happen. Let's try this one more time. I'll be right back. Hello everyone, it's Jamarl Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. I don't want to be too loud because I'm kind of technically in somebody's backyard, even though it's not technically a yard. It's a little weird here. We're in an apartment, in a basement. And all of this purpose was somebody's basement on Airbnb. But in the back of the basement, they have like kind of a little patch of fake grass. It's a nice little spot. Uncomfortable to be in, but nice little spot for the back end. I hope everyone can hear me okay. I couldn't sleep. It's 2:30 in the morning. Let's do the news. There's a dog that's losing, that's flipping out. He doesn't like the fact that I'm doing the news. The dog can go fuck himself. I'm gonna do it going forward. I had a different idea, or a different one in mind, that I was going to do for the patron appreciation. I have to be honest. My body hurts. We've been traveling, like non-stop, and it's like yesterday. It was a horrible choice. It's like you do things. You say, hey, it's a great idea if we do X. And then you do X and be like, God, this is a stupid idea. Yesterday was one of those ideas where you're traveling for 20 hours. So that said, today was a hard traveling day, but nevertheless, it's the news. I was going to do a one on climate, but there's something I guess a bit more fitting than doing the one on climate. It is weird being here. It is bizarre being here, because I have a hard time disassociating how this place operates versus being here for a short period of time. Like, it's like if you follow the news and you know how many people they killed, you know how many people they've shot. It's like how do you take that information, that knowledge, and go about your way as if you don't know that knowledge? And what does a rational person do with that information when they're in the area that's taking place? It's bizarre. I think if this was, let's say, 1700s, I guess, in America, or maybe in one of the other countries, you wouldn't have the mass media, so you wouldn't necessarily know what colonialism looks like. Nevertheless, we do have mass media, and this is literally colonialism. There's a parable here from Star Trek, and I often use Star Trek parables because I was talking to my wife this evening, and she doesn't quite get it. Like, for her, it's she knows it, but it doesn't, I don't think she cares all that much. And I try to get across to her, like, you should care, because, you know, there's a grim reality to this. First episode of Star Trek, New Generation, Farpoint Station. This is going to be a patron appreciation show. So I'm going to push this up for the patrons at the end of this. Star Trek. Only I come up with a Star Trek reference. If you remember, Q, God-like being, even though he's not God, he would own up to the fact that he's not God, stops Picard. And Picard's response to this is pretty fascinating, because Picard wasn't shocked or in awe in the sense of like bowing down before him. He was, what sort of being are you? He's just fascinated by the fact that this thing just popped on the ship. Now, Q's point was, You're an ape animal species, and for the most part, you have violent tendencies, and you shouldn't be roaming the universe. Picard's point was, yes, we should roam the universe. We have just as much right as anybody else, and we have grown beyond our ways. Meaning, we're no longer that primitive ape-like species that robbed and stole and beat and killed and maimed and ripped other human beings apart to make ends for themselves. We've evolved beyond that. Q, not having it, not buying it, forced Picard to own up to what man has become, or what man was, and making the point to him, look, you may think that you've changed, but I don't believe you have. And not just I don't believe you have. The situation that you are going to be presented with is a good test of whether or not man has grown beyond what man has typically been for the past God knows how long, which is murderers and thieves and rapists. Any bit of land that's stolen, any bit of wealth that someone has been taken from somebody else. There was no first person here. So this is common heritage. Meaning, if somebody, in this case, has accumulated vast sums of wealth, where did you get the land for that wealth? Who did you take that wealth from? And I understand, legal systems and all this other stuff, structures start to come into play to make the appropriation of that land or the appropriation of that wealth and protection of that wealth okay. But let's be honest and say in the beginning there was no first man to give it to anybody. It had to be taken or stolen from somebody else. It was the commons. Now, that said, put that to the side for the moment. Farpoint Station. Anything that they wanted magically appeared. You need this, bam. You need that, bam. Anything that you need. Riker was blown away by this. Some of the other people were blown away by this, and they were trying to get the ability to interact with the Federation in a more, let's say, it's almost like a legalistic way. They wanted an association with the Federation. So far, this just seems ordinary and plain. I mean, after all, you have holiday technology that can do many of the things that they were doing at Farpoint Station. But Farpoint Station had an extra catch to it. The very ground that they walked on, the very thing that they interacted with, it was thought that interacted with another consciousness, where the person who was there was essentially using this being inch by inch by inch to fulfill its own desires. Now, in using this being to fulfill its own desires, nobody really knew because they were using it, in this case, as a city. At some point, they found out. Now, if this was today, they would not give two shits about using that being to the way that they were using it. But in this particular scenario, they cared. The Federation cared. Not just cared, if I'm not mistaken, they released it into space. I say morality is emergent. In our situation, this land looks like little America. Honestly, if you take the Hebrew away and you just kind of was on a bus, you would think that you were just in any American city. By the same token, there's reality to it. Or thousands, just recently, over the past couple of months, thousands of human beings just like me, that even same skin pigment as me, being shot and maimed. Now, here's the thing. One of the places I went to today was the Holocaust Remembrance Museum. And it is painful to see what we as human beings was doing to other human beings. Like it's profound in the level of depravity that the Germans executed on the Jews. Very clearly, unequivocally, full stop. It was a brutal, brutal reign of terror that took place. But that brutal reign of terror doesn't allow you, by any measure, to do the same to somebody else. Meaning, Being hurt doesn't necessarily give you carte blanche to hurt somebody else. And your idea of what security is or what you want cannot overwhelm everything else from somebody else using this excuse that we've been hurt or injured or maimed or killed or whatever. I look at this from the lens of an African American in two ways. One, as African Americans, we're told consistently to shut the fuck up about stuff that happened in the past and move on. Move on, move on. Why are you talking about this? Why are you talking about this? By the same token, if you are Jewish, you talk about it nonstop. The entire edifice of us is built around we need to have a homeland. That homeland just so happens to be somebody else's homeland, but we need to have a homeland. It's a justification. But there is no justification. I have no issue with this idea of having a homeland. The issue is somebody else living there? And fact is, the Balfour document gave away something that didn't belong to the Brits in the first place. The Farpoint Station thing is fascinating to me because to some degree it's very similar. Ultimately, all of this is a function of the land that it was taken from. And the conflict that's been going on for the past 50, 60 years is not one of religion, or if you can make an argument that religion is secondary. This is an issue of land. This is an issue of land. It is weird being here, man. It's really bizarre being here. And the beings at Farpoint Station, they let the being go. The question here is, how does this end? How does this end? Understand, you can't have it both ways. Much of the land has been taken. Much of the water has been destroyed. Otherwise, like 90% of the water is no good. The United States pretends that it's a fair arbiter. I don't know how you can be fair arbiter. It's like saying the DNC was a fair arbiter. With Hillary Clinton controlling the purse strings, the United States is the arbiter and is completely in the tank for one of the sides. I don't know how you can ever get any kind of deal or any kind of legitimate ending of a conflict in that scenario. And let's be honest, the government that's in power now doesn't want the conflict to end. They want to ease this, continue to ease it along, so more and more land can be taken. It's theft. Call it what it is. And pretending like it's otherwise. The most monstrous part of this is not the military. Like, I think back to 1950s America, and 1940s America. If you met one of the people who were, let's say, in Georgia in the South, they'll probably be the most pleasant person you'd ever meet in your life. They would be kind. They would give you tea or whatever. They would serve you crumpets or whatever if you ended up on their house, providing you weren't white, you weren't black. Providing you weren't black. It's kind of like that here. Perfectly nice. Anybody you run into is kind. Speak the language magnificently well. But you know. And that makes it hard to be here. Burnman 23. There are non-stop double standards between Israeli and Jews and other countries and groups. Nobody in mainstream talks about the extremist Judaism or Israel oppressors. It's because your country is in the bag for them. I mean, that's what it boils down to. It's like Saudi Arabia. Nobody talks about Saudi Arabia in this sense. Saudi Arabia is a bunch of bloodthirsty maniacs. That thug just had a guy murdered. So put it in perspective. Donald Trump, when that comes up, he's like, yeah, look, I'm not going to change this $1 billion deal for this. You have these tech guys who want to build a technological city in the middle of the desert. And so they're okay with this guy. This guy just murdered a guy. Like, literally outright murdered a guy. It's like, come on. Desecration. So you're not down with stealing lands from natives and whites to build Wakanda in America? No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, that's kind of my point. That's kind of my point. Someone asked me one time, they was like, don't you think Jews deserve the homeland? Well, deserve is too strong for anything. But I have no issue with anybody having a homeland for anywhere. Catch is if somebody's living there, well, then you have a problem. And if your problem, and if your solution to that problem is we'll just eradicate the people who are there, then yeah, I have a problem with that. It's kind of like America, if you want to be honest. It's like America. Do you feel the racist undercurrent in your interactions? No, I don't, because it doesn't come up. From the standpoint of the people here, I'm just an American. And as being just an American, that comes out of you more than anything else. When I was here last time, I went to Bethlehem, and I really wanted my wife to go to Bethlehem because I wanted her to see the other side. Like, it's one thing for her to see this side. This looks like little America. You would think, literally think, with the exception of the people with the heavy weapons, because you'll walk around and everybody has weapons, like these machine guns. Outside of that, you would think you're in little America. I wanted her to see Bethlehem. I wanted her to see the undercurrents. I wanted her to see this other part of life this is built on. It's not enough for her to see this part. She needs to see all of it in order to come up with an actual or a more fair representation. Here's the thing. We're all to some degree enraptured or captured by trends that came before us. Meaning, even in America, there's no point where history stops. You know what I mean? History always, for the most part, goes. There's no point where any of us stops and say, hey, how do we stop this and how do we just kind of make this shit even and let's go from here? You go one step at a time. History sticks to itself. It's no different here. Here's the catch, though. What do I mean by that? It goes both ways. If you were born here, say you're born here, you would say, this is my home. And you would mean it. And it would be honest. And you would say, I'm going to defend my home. You will mean it. You will be honest. Now, the reality of it is, however, is that your home is built on somebody else's land. But you didn't make that choice. Your choices are somewhat constrained by where you are. So what do? Do you leave your homeland? Or do you try to defend your homeland? Or do you come up with a sensible perspective to incorporate it all? It's not the simplest thing in the world to say they need to fix this, because ultimately the people who were born here have a certain connection to the area. I experienced this so bizarrely, man. Like being an African American, I experienced this in a weird way. Like even experiencing Kenya, or like it's so bizarre to me. Like many times when my wife and I traveled, we're traveling through Europe. Well, I'm a minority in America. We only make up 13% of the population, and in Europe, probably even less. You know, if you see another American, it's a rare occurrence at that point. But in Africa, everybody looks like you. It's bizarre. Now, I come here, and I know that there's somebody here, people here, having similar experiences that I had in America. And in knowing that there's similar people here having experiences similar to what I had in America, I feel a connection to that experience, to the unfairness, injustice. It makes it difficult to travel here, if I'm being honest. And I know my wife has disliked me on multiple occasions while we were here. Yeah, it's just weird. It's just really bizarre. Burnman 23. Everybody who came over after the Holocaust or shortly after can stay, but those who kept annexing long after forced back original. I met my I give you another experience. What I mean by this, when I say it, like, it's kind of monstrous, but it's it's the normality that's monstrous, because the normality is hiding the reality. We I needed a sauna. I my treatment thing is spaced out, and so sometimes having a sauna helps. Like, it pulls toxins out of my skin. It's kind of like this, just kind of workaround that we've used, or that I've used, in order to get from point A to point B when there's a span of time between treatments. And I get to I find a sauna, and the woman's at the counter, and she's talking to people in Hebrew. She's on point. And she turns and she talks to us, and her accent switches. She's an American from New York, if I'm not mistaken. And my wife and I was kind of startled by this, because the accent flipped so quick. Where, granted, I don't know Hebrew, but it sounded like everybody else. And then she turned to us, and her accent was immediately just American. And it's like her she has no connection to this place, and yet, based on the laws that these guys have come up with, she has more right to her land than the people who were actually born in the land. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. And then they call us like a Jewish state. It's so bizarre. Now, as an American, you don't really get that, because you're an American. You're considered an ally. And consider an ally, whether you're black or somewhere in between, ultimately you're an American. That woman is an American. There are people who actually really live here. She's considered, it's like she has more right to the land than somebody who was actually born in the land. It's so bizarre. It's so bizarre. Jamal, you get the same thing in New York with some Jewish population. When you speak Hebrew, they sound totally different. Yeah, they switched the accents here. Like, they could pass for American in a heartbeat. They can pass for American in a heartbeat. But people are perfectly nice. I tell this story back in 2008, when I think I was going to travel to Nepal, and I met this woman, a Jewish woman. And when she found out I was going to Nepal, she flips out, and she's extremely like sympathetic. Like, wait, you can't go, you're gonna get sick, you're gonna kill yourself. We have a problem, and I gotta be honest, I don't know how to fix that, because the problem is not just here; it's also in America. It's differential. People don't want to give up the differential advantage. That's not just them, that's also me, that's also all of us. When I was it dawned on me that I'm the 1% that I hate. Like, I'm getting in a cab, and the cab ride's like $1. Okay? This is like, I could pretty much buy whatever I want. Somebody said you could buy a kidney in Egypt if you needed one. How do you change the world when nobody wants to give up a differential advantage? How? I don't know an answer to that. What I do know is rational human beings, evolved human beings, were able to give up Farpoint Station. The catch is, Picard, Riker already had everything that they needed. Meaning, if they needed energy, a device or something like that, they could build it. If they needed food, there's never a day where anyone on that ship is going to think of starving or going hungry or anything else. Nobody on Earth at that point is going to think about going hungry. They're rational human beings because their society has evolved in a way that allows them to be rational human beings. We're not there. We're not there. All right. I'm not going to keep this one much longer. I mean, it's 3 in the morning. Um, Look, the issue here is not. I guess maybe you could say the individuals, but I guess it is. But that kind of goes with us too. It's like how do you fix it? What about the rumors that you can't get back? Oh yeah, there's that stuff. That's I don't know. We can get back to the United States. We're not stuck. We're not stuck. I heard somebody say that. Yeah, we're not stuck. Danny Knapp. The trick is to make the 99% realize we're all better off with equality and justice. Yes. Being slightly less shit on than others is no substitute for equality. Yes, agreed. Great. Jamal laughed at the idea of being stuck. We're not stuck. We're not stuck. Somebody said they made a joke about Progressive Voice stealing super chat money or taking super chat money, and we got stuck because of it. No, it's nonsense. They're fucking around. Yeah, no mention of the slave labor federation is working the lithium mines. Well, they have robots doing that stuff up. They have robots. I don't think it's a differential advantage relative to what they could have rather than commoners. They're being used to us to divide and conquer. Well, let's talk about it from the standpoint of the United States. Um, Race. Yeah, let's talk about race. When the United States first started, there was indentured servitude. Indentured servitude, the person would work for about 7, 8 years, however long, and the person would be free to go about their way. It became cheaper, or let's say more efficient, to essentially just have slave labor. Like, it became one of those things. Blacks and whites used to actually work together in the fields. Um, at some point, that changed, but race became a thing where it was easy to identify, and you can make an argument. The system itself kind of contorted itself around what was economically better for the people who were, let's say, not that slave. Um, the systems itself contorted around it. Like, people enslave each other. Africans have got the worst end of the races. Yeah. Agreed. I love live chats with JT fans. What did you? I like chatting with you too, Trudy. I wish the signal was better, if I'm being honest. Um, I miss seeing you all so much live. This is a treat. Much love, Jamal. Aw, thank you, Moni. Thank you. I appreciate it. Slave owners had the advantage, not those who were enabling it among the general public. Slave work had been adopted like jobs, construction, and human rights and free. Yeah, yes. Slavery is ideal workforce for capitalism, bringing the mass labor camps. Well, what, 8 cent? Some of those jails are paying 8 cents an hour? It's insane. That's like 8 cent slave labor. No, they don't. The work was too meticulous, which is why they later repurposed the obsolete doctor programs. I see. And you're right, they did repurpose the programs. Oh, but they are a robot. Fair enough. The doctor's not a robot. He's a hologram. But they're able to use hologram for... Yeah, fair enough. You're right, Bob. You're right, Bob. Indonesia, Europe, America, now Thailand. Some countries may be poor. Make being poor a crime, and some do not. Think about that as if somebody wants to be poor. Somebody wants to not have access to the things that they need. Look, I understand why, if you were doing magnificently well, why you would want to maintain and continue to do magnificently well. Fair enough. But this system isn't working for everybody else. And we are literally killing ourselves. The story I was going to do was on CNN gaslighting the population. I'm still going to do that story. CNN, look at this. It's the newest shit out of me, which is why I wasn't going to do the story. What the new report on climate change expects from you. Okay. But expects from me. You're putting this shit on me now. Fair enough. Why are you putting it on me, though? What did I do? What did I do? Why are you putting it on me? Yes, I ate my hamburgers. I had 3 hamburgers a day. That's fair enough. My stomach is killing me. I ate too much. I ate like a fat bastard today, if I'm being honest. But God, they were so good. And it's hard to break a cultural tradition in this way. So fair enough. I shouldn't eat as much meat. And I've just read that report. That report said the world was coming to an end. The world will be here. Our habitable space, we don't know. And here's another thing. That report was hair on fire. Like, let's be very clear. The fact that CNN is even talking about it gets across that that report was hair on fire. They were talking about 22 years. And this was talking about there's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. For all intents and purposes. There's an asteroid that's going to hit the planet. Culturally, we are ill-prepared to deal with that reality. We have this thought form, religion of capitalism. I tell my wife, I say, you may not necessarily want to bow at the altar, but goddamn it, you're going to bow in the sense of you're going to buy things because you need those things just to get from point A to point B. CNN, throwing it on me. Here's the reality of this, though. Let's see. Where is it? Oh, where is it? Right here. Scared by the new report on climate change? Hey, you should eat less meat, about 30%. Eat 30% less meat. Swap your car or plane ride or a bus or a train. Use a smart thermostat in your home and upgrade to more efficient appliances. You know what this puts me in mind of? If there's a nuclear bomb, hide under your desk. Hide under your desk. The reality of this, just 100 companies have been the source of more than 70% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions since 1988, according to a new report. Not just that, Exxon knew about this 40 years ago, but Exxon didn't say shit. Exxon attacked the science. The corporations, those 100 corporations, have been putting money into attacking the science itself. This is talking about the end of the world. But they need to get all the money that they could get before the world ends. It's a cash grab. We're going to get as much as we could possibly get before the world ends. I guess I'm the idea that CNN is saying you should eat 30% less meat as if it's on you. It's not on you. Yes, half of what takes place from the standpoint of what's fucking up our world, the carbon, is animal agriculture. But the other half, some people say it's a little bit more, some people say it's a little bit less. Either way, 50-50, animal agriculture and fuel. But fact is, just 100 companies have been the source of more than 70% of the world's greenhouse emissions. It seems that CNN's fire would be best placed towards those 100 companies, not trying to get people to throw cans into recycling bins. This is what the problem is. This is a problem of culture. Don't misunderstand me. So yeah, us being vegetarians would be a better world. Full stop. But let's be very clear that the issue here is not the amount of, people eating 30% less meat. Yes, that would help. But just 100 companies have been the source of more than 70% of the world's greenhouse gases since 1998. It seems like this will be the area to which we focus, not hitting people in the knuckles not hitting people in the knuckles. Gaslighting. Hide under your desk. In case of a nuclear bomb. Hide under your desk in case of a nuclear bomb. I would say this though. I wish my mom raised me a vegetarian. Lord knows I wish she raised me a vegetarian. There was one headline, not online Facebook ban pages include Russia spam accounts. Yeah, they got rid of hundreds. Has Jamal met BB in the IDF yet? Well, you know, most, I can't say most. It's like what, military service is compelled by state. So I'm not, you know, pretty much any person you run into might be a soldier. But no, I haven't met BB. I don't think BB would like me very much. Citizens do have a role to play in divestment and walking away from consumerism. Yes. Well, no, I don't know how you do that. I mean, I agree with you, Garden. Like, minimalistic lifestyle, yes. But for fuck's sake, have you tasted a really good steak? It's hard, man. It's hard. I predict Jamal would not get one. No, I would not get. That's a good prediction, Danny. That's a good prediction. I really do want to engage and talk to people, but I got to be honest. I don't know how far that goes. I don't know how far that goes. Yeah, damn it, Jim. I'm a CEO, not a son. It's corporate Scotty. BB is whack dudes for sure. I love his own coke. Yes, military service unless you're fatty. So some eat themselves to 300 pounds of water. Are you serious? No way. No way. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Yeah, I did not know that, Gordon. I love things not struggle. Yeah, man, it's a struggle, especially when you, this is this thing of environment. I keep saying environment is everything. Not everything, that's too strong. But environment is damn important. If you were raised a vegetarian, it wouldn't be an issue. There's a normality associated with the way people eat meat, and because there's a normality associated with it, it's considered to be normal. Forget the fact that it's destroying the world. Destroying the world. I can't scream too loud because there are people here. Ruben, is Jamal on vacation? No, I'm not on vacation. If I was on vacation, I wouldn't be doing this. I just had the best steak I ever had in 66 years. So the best steak I've ever had. My wife and I had just got married in Iceland. Now, if you've ever been to Iceland, Iceland is the most expensive place on the planet. I swear to God, and if it's not, oh man, I can't imagine anywhere else being higher. And we winced every time we wanted something to eat. It would hurt. It would hurt. It would hurt. Like 1,000 times it would hurt. It was one of those things where you just skip meals because it hurt so bad when you actually get a meal. Yeah, Gordon, I'll see you in a few months. I'll see you probably in November, towards the end of November. We've changed to go to Poland. Yeah, we were going to Poland. We had just got married. We nearly ran out of gas. We found this little restaurant that had cows and all this other stuff and milk. And my wife goes outside to the car and she says, I think they just murdered a cow. And the cow was like screaming, like, yeah, it's insane. If we dump real cash and resources into the right technologies, yes, that's true. You know what's funny about the lab-grown stuff? You know, they have like lab-grown chickens. Have you seen that? It looks so gross. But then you start thinking of it from the standpoint of, yeah, it does seem gross, but you're also killing an animal, ripping its carcass apart, and eating its skin. The grossness is contextual. How many places have you traveled to? Ruben Gonzalez. I gotta be honest. I don't know how to answer. I don't know. My wife was adding up the numbers. I think it was like 20 something, 20 some countries. Has anyone heard? Yes, yes, and yes. Michael Cadence. Has anyone heard that Julian Assange has his internet restored? Don't eat meat unless you know where it's raised, where it was raised, and give it a kiss before you execute it nutrition. And destroying environment in the process. Yes, partially restored. Michael Cadence. So, yeah, I heard partially restored. I heard partially restored. We don't need to grow the whole animal. We can just produce the meat. I know, Garden. I guess that's the point. That's not gross. How are all the world's strongest men from Iceland if it's so expensive to eat there? Because it's cold. I would imagine the cold makes a strong man. The man has to be strong in order to deal with the cold. It's fucking freezing. You have those guys growing like giants. Slaughter is gross, yeah, but not worse than natural predation and illness. Fair enough, Winslow. Fair enough. In theory, we can grow sheets of meat. Hey, they're doing that now, Garden. Like, they're literally doing that now. They're growing that stuff in the labs. They're growing that stuff in labs. That's so fucking gross. But yeah. Jamal's so real, he's making most deaf envy. Most deaf. I love it. Your journey is an inspiration. I just got back from Europe. Oh, God, now in Europe. These views. Thank you. Stephen Dose. Not gross. Think of it the way you don't currently meat is coming from. Why would it come? Well, I mean, it's contextual. I mean, all of it's contextual. I mean, for all intents and purposes, you're talking about taking an animal, putting a knife in it, or cutting its head off, and ripping its body apart, and then you're sitting there cooking in grease. All of that shit is gross. We don't think of it as gross. We think of it as delicious. It's contextual. That's what I'm saying. The sheets of meat, it's gross because it's just not what we're typically used to. Kids who grow up, if, us dinosaurs die off, those kids would be perfectly okay with growing meat on sheets. Just saying. Crickets are a great source of food. Too bad crickets are not beef. I hear you, man. We're supposed to hit Vietnam at some point, like in a few months. I think it's like in February. We'll find out. We will find out. Join A. I avoid at all costs a truly evil company. I'm trying to put the word out. Throat slit first to bleed. Yeah, dark roast left. That's kind of my point. That's kind of my point. That shit's gross. I went to a restaurant to order ribeye and they bought me something that wasn't meat and said it was ribeye. Oh, that's gross. Yeah, that's gross. I'm waiting for IDF to bust in and kick the fuck out Jamal Garden. I gotta be honest, I'm kind of waiting for that myself. I'm waiting for that myself. Like, Mr. Thomas, we need Aisha got interrogated at the border. I was like, what did you do? I was like, what did you do? Jamal, what's your favorite conspiracy, like the wild ones? And I'm not talking about alien wild. My favorite conspiracy. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. When you get into conspiracy stuff, the word is used purely to keep people away from certain ideas. There's no way to know, per se. I mean, you've had presidents that had people murdered, and you bring that up and you're like, oh, that's a conspiracy. That's not a conspiracy theory at all. The president had people murdered. That's a tough one. Any conspiracy theory I had would involve aliens. If I'm being honest, it would involve aliens. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't care. Hey, brother, you skipped my question. I didn't realize I skipped your question. Let's see. What was your question? Oh, I don't know what the question was. Conditions to this partial restoration. He has freedom to speak, but without the freedom of speech. Yeah. Question. Do you see any diversity on the progressive channel? Your channel. Oh, I see. That I know so far. So, Tim Black, of course, is black. But, I don't know. Like, that's a tough one. This is one of those things that I see people making an issue about, but I don't know. I didn't when I started this channel. I just the channel was more based on this idea of the world should be a different place. It shouldn't be this way. And taking that perspective and running with it. I don't think that perspective has a color per se, even though I know that just as human beings are, we can be more attuned to how we are. You know, this person looks like me, so this person to some degree understands my experience in a way that other people don't. That part's true, by the way. That part's absolutely true. The catch becomes, yeah, I gotta be honest, I don't know. I get so stuck just on my own channel. It's like I'm always in this constant thing for content. So I don't necessarily get the chance to diverge into seeing other stuff. But I don't know. I saw this argument where Tim Black was having, and Tim Black, I think, made actually a really good point. He was like, you know, for all the talk of diversity. Now, granted, the point is self-serving, of course. But he's like, for all the talk of diversity, you know, I don't bring in the dough of some of the other white channels or something like that. That's probably true. I mean, blacks make up 13% of the population. There's a slight bar that I think an individual has to go to engage with somebody that doesn't particularly look like them. Some people can step over that bar easy. Some people can't step over that bar all that well. And I think Tim Black's point is, again, to some degree self-serving. It's like people seem to, you know, be more attuned to certain channels than others. Maybe, yes, I can kind of see it. By the same token, it's never been my focus. Like, I don't necessarily do things with this context of what other people are doing. I do it just to do it. I don't know if that answers the question. I don't see diversity like talking about but I don't know what that would look like anyway. Like, there are plenty of African Americans, they just happen to be Democrats. And you get into this thing of progressives becoming something of their own. Part of the that could be a video on its own, but part of the bar for that one is you have a lot of blacks who, for the most part, have been creatures of the Democratic Party for God knows how long. And it's kind of like what I used to tell my mom when asked about a spirit guide. It's like, you believed in Jesus for 50, 60 years, and all of a sudden I tell you about a spirit guide and you wanted to speak to you tomorrow. It's kind of that way. These guys have been creatures of the Democratic Party without getting anything in return for it. How do you pull those people away? I don't know how you pull those people away, especially when they're terrified that the monster's going to get them. That monster is real. The monster can get them. But there needs to be a certain understanding that if you want anything real politically to take place, it's not going to take place within the comfort of the party. I don't know how you yank people away from that. Now, this idea of getting diversity into progressive circles, I suspect starts there. The diversity is probably lacking because the diversity is stuck in the Democratic Party, if that makes sense. You got to break those people away. You have to win the argument. Whatever you want to say about Trump, this bump in African Americans that were supposedly attuned to Donald Trump has the potential to pull them away. That's a positive. That's a positive. Now, not a positive in the sense that they went to Trump. It is a positive that they started looking for something else. So are progressives trying to play the colorblind card? Ideally, yes. With a caveat. With a caveat. Colorblind doesn't necessarily mean color retarded. Like, it's one thing for me to say, um, I can acknowledge the history of African Americans in this country. You should acknowledge it. It's real. Like the things that have taken place over the course of this time period in this country should be acknowledged. That stuff should be real. Like it's because there is no such thing as there's no such thing as just whitewashing that stuff away. I always say whites don't regard their history honestly. Well, right here, it needs to be regarded honestly. Because a lot of the roots of what's taken place from the standpoint of African Americans, whether you want to talk about poverty or whether you want to talk about the wealth that's accrued in a particular area, has its origins in the founding of this country. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that needs to be the only thing you talk about, like some people, where that's like their mainstay, and that's the only lens that they can look through the world. But by the same token, it still needs to be acknowledged. Yes, it's a tightrope. It's a dance. It's one of those things where you're aware of, and there are issues that come up sometimes that hits that particular button, and you deal with the issues as they hit that button. But do I try to function in a way that doesn't necessarily need color as being the primary mover? Yeah, I try to function in a way that doesn't need color as the primary mover. Jamal, no one ever talks about IQ and race. I don't know why they would need to. The DNC could go anti-war, anti-corporate overnight and earn 95% of the American vote. Ryan for Prez, yes. Yes. You have some psychopaths, but yes, those people. Personally, I think they're psychopaths. But yes. Brother, weird progressive tends to be South racist against whites. Okay. You're a minority of the dresser. What? I need you to use your words, Mark Benjamin. I don't understand your question, Mark. Simplify the question. I don't understand it. Laura H. Used to be when I told someone I am lesbian, it was all they could joke about or mention it. Now it's more chill. Yeah, that's the other part, right? It's like, and I know this is relative perspective, but whites put you in a box either way. Like it's just like dealing with you as an individual becomes a difficult thing because, you know, either it's just weird, but like you said, when you used to tell somebody it was a lesbian, they would joke about it, or, you know, as opposed to just saying, oh, okay, and move on. I prefer the, oh, okay, move on, because at that point you're just dealing with me as a person. Somebody asked one time, they were like, hey, how do I get more black friends? And it's like, as if blacks, you know, was some kind of mythical beast sitting on on some island somewhere. The fucking human beings, the experience, and the things that you deal with are the same things across the board. For fuck's sake. Whites still have way more community wealth than the rest of us. It makes sense that they would be attached to America K. Yes, yes, that's true. Martian Villager, yes. That's true. That's absolutely true. Oh, God. Ruben. Hey, Jamal, what do you think of David Pakman? I don't think anything of David Pakman. And I don't mean it as an insult. I just literally think nothing of David Pakman. There are some people who tend to be creatures of the Democratic Party, or at the very least, more attuned to the likes and the wishes of the party itself. They want change, but not really change. It's like they want change, but they don't want to do anything to get it. So they're comfortable where they are. That's where I put Pakman. That's where I put Pakman. In that bunch. Like with him and Cedar. They're comfortable with the way things are. Ultimately, they can have their talk show. They can do what, you know, they do their thing. But what it takes for real change, it's not sitting in a fucking studio. Yeah, I don't think anything of Pakman. I can understand the sentiment of, I want more black friends. Some people have never interacted with black people and are curious. Yeah, that's so weird to me. That's so weird to me. I know what you're talking about, Cardone, but that's so bizarre to me. Black people aren't a monolith. If they were, explain, Jamal. No, they're not monolith. People are people. People are people. Like, I know I say that. People are people. Just the natural trend of things. Meaning one day after the next. There's certain things that people accrue around. So say for the example, listing of race. There'll be certain events that may take place. Somebody gets shot. Well, the cop kills somebody. Now, my commonality with other African Americans, they're probably going to be 90% of African Americans that has somewhat of a similar experience in this regard. And because there's similar experience, there's a commonality. There's an accruement of perspective around it that's similar. But that's with everybody. Like that's the reason why you have a Republican Party that's, almost entirely white. There's certain things or themes that come up that creates distinctions, and that creates groups. So if an issue comes up where my people of my group or people of a particular thing are, it's like, say for example, a political thing. For in an odd way, we don't necessarily accrue in political parties in this way. Like they do it in some other countries. Like they would have tribes, and those tribes will be, because in Africa, everybody's black for the most part. So it's like, what do you use as a distinction in society when race is no longer off the table? They find other shit to come up with distinctions. In this case, tribes. I don't have anything even close to what that is. The closest thing that I have is to some degree race. Blacks aren't monoliths. They're just certain issues that come up that affects us a little bit more than whites, in which case we accrue around that particular thing. But that's not necessarily indicative of people being monolithic in their perspective. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, poverty is one of those issues. Poverty is one of those issues, yeah. Especially when you're talking about, this is what I mean when I say whites aren't honest about their history. Like, America was stolen land. Like a genocide. Now, the genocide doesn't necessarily get raised into the thing of what took place. It's whitewash, literally. That genocide was then followed up by essentially slavery, where you've taken human beings and you've mangled them into a form and created a power structure around this idea of these people being mangled into form, creating monsters of the people who were mangling them in this way, and creating like broken human beings. Well, broken is the wrong word for it, but human beings that have been, let's say, bent out of shape in order to do the task for that particular society. That goes on for hundreds of fucking years. And the wealth is accrued in one particular direction. And then at some point you say, all right, you guys are free. Free slaves. Have at it. Go pull yourself up by your bootstraps or something. Now, the power structure, for the most part, kept blacks, even during the New Deal, kept blacks out of certain positions, kept blacks out of certain housing areas. So, yeah, you're talking about going up to like the 80s, where you had a certain segment of the population that was completely shut out. Not just of the political discourse, but of the population itself. Like, it's always weird to me, the conversations that take place that don't acknowledge that. How can you have a conversation about anything dealing with politics or America when that part is not acknowledged, or that part is not even owned up to? Because the catch is, if you own up to that, then you've owned up to a crime. And how do you compensate for a crime of that magnitude? And not just an individual, but you're talking about 13% of the population. Race in this country is not regarded. Honestly, I'm sorry, it's not. Now, that said, I don't think you can ever give reparations for that. At least not in a way that we regard it. Now, the best that you can get is to try to get rid of poverty. If nothing else, get rid of poverty. And I don't say that just for blacks. You know, the majority of whites during the time where they was fighting the Civil War were dirt poor. It wasn't like you had a huge majority of whites that had slaves. Many of those whites were dirt poor. The only thing that they had to their name was their white skin. Like, it's 60% of the population in this country, 60 or 70%, don't have $500 to pay a car note. We only make up 13% of the population, which means that you have a large segment of the population that's poor. Like, get rid of that. Why? Why? It's not necessary. If you want to do things like get rid of healthcare, right there, healthcare. What do you know? Right off the bat, you get rid of people's medical bills. You make their life a little bit easier. Get rid of their education bills. You can do those things. You're spending $1 trillion on the military. That's a jobs program. I hate to tell you that. That jobs program is essentially murdering people around the globe in order to create terrorists, which allows them to create more bullets and bombs and planes and jets and more justification for doing this. Our policy makes no sense outside of the context of a jobs program. Either these are the stupidest people on the planet, missing the fact that we're creating terrorists. Which every person that we killed, we are creating monstrous misery around the globe. Monstrous misery. I've been reading Chalmers Johnson's book, Blowback. And that book is fucking painful to read. Racism isn't simply an attitude. A lot of racist people personally like black or brown people in theory, but their worldview is totally racist. Martian Villager, yeah, many of those people don't know anybody who's black or brown, or they would say, if they met somebody who was black or brown, it's like, I like that guy. In fact, it would be this weird thing of, that's why people say I have a black friend. like it's like, I like that guy, that individual. But somehow the individual is separate and distinct from the group, as if that particular individual is somehow atypical, in which case they can like that person. Once they can put a face on it, it becomes something different. By the same token, that goes both ways. This idea of something happening to you by someone of a particular race, sometimes there's a certain association with that particular race and the negative attribute associated with it. Yeah, it's fucking fascinating. All right, I'm going to end this. It's almost 4 in the morning and I'm cold. So, guys, I appreciate you guys coming out. I really do. And I'm sorry I couldn't get the patron appreciation thing up earlier. But I've been fighting with this internet stuff like nobody's business. So I'm going to push this one up. And I have additional videos. We're traveling tomorrow. We're leaving tomorrow. My wife had these 2 days off. So I've been with her traveling. But once we get to, we go to Lisbon next. So we should get to Lisbon tomorrow. I gotta be honest, I'm fucking tired. Like, this has been a hellish pace. I'm in midway between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. It's like Mobin, I think. I think it's called Mobin. Don't let the bed bugs bite. Bernie is against reparations, unjustifiable. Because there's no way to get it through. Whites don't regard their history honestly. How on earth can you get reparations through by a group that doesn't regard their history honestly? Laura H, can you chill a bit? Oh, I'm cool. If you're scared of a black man in his own apartment, oh God, yeah, Trudy, I know, right? I know. White wealth is a product of historical crimes. Yes. Martian Villager. Yes. Yes, that's true. That's completely true. Yes. That is completely true. He is for community development, though. Yes. Which is what I think you could get through. If you make an argument. If I make an argument And in that argument, I try to get this point to you. This is, look, all of us will be better off. If you said all of us will be better off if we do X, you have a much better chance than saying we're going to give this to Y. You must understand, whites already think that blacks are trying to take their cup of coffee, whether you realize it or not. This whole thing about everybody, in an odd way, whites are killing themselves and fucking themselves over. Fucking themselves over purely to not allow, it's not purely because of that, but a lot of it has to do with that. A lot of it has to do with that. Alright, I'm going to end this because my video output is low and I don't know how much longer I have on my gigs. I've been buying gigs as well. I've been going from point A to point B. Alright, if you enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through Patreon. Thanks all. And yeah, a lot of them do believe it. It is about money. They believe somebody's trying to take their cash. Forget the fact that they're... I'll leave it. Alright, guys.